and there was a party for a film, Jodha Akbar, and I think it was at Ashutosh Gavarkar's house. And I was waiting outside the loo, because there was someone using it, and then you stepped out. I'm like, whoa, 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 like just completely freaked
What a
out.
way to meet.
Yeah.
And boom, I get a call. Like 4 days before the Oscar, I get, Michael wants to meet. What? Like, and suddenly something told me like, I don't want to meet him if I don't win.
Oh, really?
We're having dinner with Vangelis. What? Yeah, he's gonna cook salad for you. Like what? Good. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. You ready?
Ready?
I'm
Let's go.
presuming you've been going like one interview after another. Good. I'll start.
Yes. Oh, Nirmika wants to say hi to you.
Yeah, I can't do this without introduction.
What? Your voice.
I wouldn't be okay. Am I here? I wouldn't be here, sir. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mayank. He's the person who gave me my first job. I went in for a meeting. In 30 minutes, I was out with an appointment letter. 10 years
Yay.
ago.
Well,
That's how you do it.
That's
And
how
I
you do
wouldn't be
it.
here, Mayank, if it wasn't for AR sir. I went to meet him. He asked me to recite a poem. I got to write a song.
Amazing.
Rest is history for me.
Okay, so,
Over to you.
yeah, thank you. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. This is Mayank Shekhar, and with me is a guest who does not need a longer introduction than just his name, A.R. Rahman. Rahman, thank you so much for joining us.
Our pleasure. Yeah.
Rahman, I'm so glad that we're doing this conversation over the screen. I need to tell you the first time I met you, of course, you'll have no memory of this. This is many years ago, and there was a party for a film, Jodha Akbar, and I think it was at Ashutosh Gavarkar's house. And I was waiting outside the loo, because there was someone using it, and then you stepped out. I'm like, whoa, 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 like just completely freaked
What a
out.
way to meet.
Yeah. And the thing is, Rahman, I was watching this show, if I'm not mistaken, Indian Idol, and there were all these participants, and they were equally like frozen, and they were getting nervous in your presence. I mean, over so many years, has that just become a thing? Are you used to that reaction?
I'm used to that. Like, come on, get over it. Sing.
But is that? I know that you've spoken once about how
Actually, I could have had the same kind of effect when I met Michael Jackson, but I took a very interesting moment of my life to meet him, so I got over it. It was just the next day after my 2 Oscars.
right.
I met Michael Jackson, so okay, I'm also on the top of the world. Hey, Michael, how are you?
In fact, I really wanted to know, like, you've been a musician since, since your teens, early teens, and clearly, you have influences from across. And Michael Jackson is a great example for you to have met him. Are there people that who had a similar effect on you when you've like sort of seen them in front of you, like, oh my God, like, maybe pinched yourself a little? Is that really him or her?
Yes, actually, we grow up in India, but I was looking at the world through records and the achievements of audio through records and CDs and LDs, and that way I think I learned more than literally being with them, because sometimes you imagine more than what they are. That's one of the reasons why these people are awestruck. Like, I'm human, I'm just normal. And so like people like John Williams, when I met him first, I mean, 30-40 years I've been listening to John Williams as a composer, as a soundtrack composer. Then there was Vangelis, whom I met him in I think Athens. We were on a cruise with Paul Allen and Mick Jagger and all of us doing the super heavy, like recordings in the yacht. When Mr. Paul Allen came in and said, AR, and we became fond friends kind of thing, because he's a friend of Dave Stewart. Dave Stewart took me there. Dave Stewart is from the Eurythmics, that band.
Right.
Yeah. And he said, AR, do you want to meet anybody? And I was like, whom do I know in Athens? And the only person I could think was, is Vangelis here? Does he live here? And then he just quietly went, and he comes after 1 hour and he says, we're having dinner with Vangelis. What? Yeah, he's going to cook salad for you. Like, what? And then we went to his house, and he comes in a lift, this huge gentleman. And, because as a synth player, you admire someone so for his artistry and his expression and his innovativeness. And suddenly you meet him, and he's playing for us for like 3 hours. And everybody's bored and they're going, and I'm like awestruck. I'm sitting because all the people who are there are like rock stars and
Right.
big, yeah.
And what about Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson thing happened post, when I did for promotions for Slumdog Millionaire. My agent, Sam Schwartz, he said, "You have to come now. I think this movie is going to get traction, and you being here and all the parties will help." So I went there, and so he introduced me to his friend. "Oh, this is the guy who manages Michael Jackson." And I said, "Okay." I looked at him and was like, "Can I meet him?" and so Sam looked at him. "Hey, my client wants to meet him." Like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll send him a mail." And so nothing happened. Silence, radio silence for 1 month, 1.5 months. The nominations were announced.
Right.
There were like 3 nominations, and boom, I get a call. Like 4 days before the Oscar, I get, "Michael wants to meet you." What? Like, and suddenly something told me like, I don't want to meet him if I don't win.
Oh, really?
So I was like, because I was also under stress.
Right.
I was rehearsing. There was a lot of things which are unsure whether I'm going to perform, whether the musical performance is going to be there or not, or can get cancelled. So I was like, if I win, I'll go meet him, right? So I won 2, and then okay. So you're going to meet him. What time are you going to meet him? Like 6:30 in the evening when the sun went down. It was just dusk time, and then he opens the door, slow motion. Then he's got his gloves and shook hands. There was no corona at the time. And there's opera music playing. So unreal. And then I met him again also.
So opera music playing in the house?
The background.
In the background score. That really filmy.
It is. It's very unreal, surreal.
And this was at Neverland, his estate?
No, it is a house which he had taken, a big, like a huge place. Because he was rehearsing for the thing, and then he was with his kids, and it was surreal. It's one of the greatest artists, I think.
Were you a huge MJ fan all through, Rahman? Was that a huge influence in your music in terms of sound production for sure?
Correct. I think MJ's song production and his is all in one. Like, many things we learned from MJ. Production, how the sound comes from the speaker. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Like, how are they mixing it? So there's Bruce Tweedin, who's one of the engineers whom also Ranjit Barod has worked with. And the arrangement and the repetition, the feel, the passion, the impact of what wakes you up, Even when you're dull, it wakes you up. Even now, when you play stuff, it feels like it's been done with so much of love and care and, articulation.
Rahman, do you think that kind of music, which is so heavy on production, especially MJ's, I mean, I think Thriller would have released in the early 80s, 83, if I'm not mistaken, and it just feels like it dropped yesterday. Is there something about the production quality, or when you layer it, because you do the same thing with your music, when you layer it, it really survives longer as against orchestral music, which kind of fades with time? Would you agree in some form?
No, I think sometimes you need simplicity. Sometimes, like how we talk, and certain words are, recorded as, gems, and certain are just motor mouth, they say, right?
Yeah.
And we just don't talk. You hold on things and you just speak, which are like music is also like that. When you play something, is it valuable? It's got a feel. It's got love in it. Has it got passion in it? We have to only play those, not just keep playing blah 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 blah. Some people keep doing that. Even singing or improvisation for me is important. Like whatever you do should be valuable. Should have a phrase which is memorable. Should have passion in it. Should have love in it. And same with orchestral pieces. It should have multiple harmonies. It should have things which move you. It should have the right progressions which actually are very special, and it feels like it emotes, and it grabs you, and then it takes you to a journey,
Right.
And that means leaning very deep into it and diving deep into it, which so many times I do pieces and I just cut and throw it off. Like, it's not happening for me. It's not doing anything to me. I might have spent like 3 days, about 4 days on it, and cut.
But Rahman, like if one were to compare you, for instance, with say an MJ, or even for that matter, U2 or Bono, I mean, in the entire lifetime, they would have done what, maybe 12, 13 albums their whole life. But your output, do you even know how many albums you've done, and or even how many songs you've done?
I've done more than 160 or 170 albums, I think, and multiple languages also. Like, see, for my advantage is, for them to do an album, they have to come up with a concept, they have to come up with the idea, melody, and everything. Here, we have a movie, we have a script, we have a director who's nudging the whole thing, who's showing the direction. This is the direction. So in that direction, so many things are defined. So you don't have to, and you have a great lyric writer who's giving great thoughts.
Right.
So many things are defined. So it's much more easier to do more than suddenly think. Like, this album took for me like almost 6-7 years to do, because 99, because
Right.
I'm coming with the story. I have to come up with some unique situation. I need to see whether it really matches, or it needs to enhance the movie, or does it bring it down, and at what point of time it's coming. So there's so many questions I have to answer myself, along with the director. Both of us are mulling around, and because there's no other people telling you this is the right, this is wrong. They're not. We are doing the homework. They do the homework, and we take the cake.
Right.
But here we are empowered, and that means more responsibility, more imagination, more experimentation.
Right. Right. But personally, for you, Rahman, of course, you've had multiple phases through your musical career, but this is Rahman 2.0 purely because it's Rahman as a filmmaker. And as I said, you're the producer of the film, you've written the story. Uh, how does that change for you in the sense of, I know that you've collaborated very, very strongly with all your filmmakers. You're not just a person who, throws a bank at someone and then they'll pick the songs they like, which is true for so many other composers. I mean, have there been situations in your life as a music composer where you've actively contributed to filmmaking in terms of story, in terms of changing the arc of a story or moments in a script?
No, I didn't have the courage to do that before. I will probably suggest that is it dark or just like more generic rather than specific.
Right.
I was an executive producer for a Hollywood film called The Monkeys of Mumbai, which started in 2012 and then it ended badly 2015. They dropped the thing because DreamWorks was sold. So this project, they pulled the carpet on this one. 4 years of hard work, working with Steven Schwartz, one of the world's best lyricists and composer also. So he was writing lyrics and I was doing Gurinder Chadha and Paul, both of them are doing the scripting. So when we discussed things about it, because it was about Indian tradition, I had a lot of things to say. And, Paul would say like, AR has got this idea. What do you think about it? And it will get included that, so it started at that time, I think, in Hollywood, because I was doing an extra part as an executive producer. So maybe that empowerment of, doing something in Hollywood where people value your ideas and then you probably get encouraged. And that's probably one of the reasons I think I forgot about that. Yeah. Even now, I think when Gurinder has meetings with producers, Hollywood producers, it's like, is not just a composer, but he's also, he has a lot of great ideas about script and storytelling. And we value that and kindly remarked all that stuff in the meetings, which is beautiful.
Right, right. So are you telling me that all these years that you've been working in India, whether down south or in the north, they see it as an intrusion of a music composer bringing in a story idea? Have you felt that?
I didn't want actually. Actually, I didn't care. I trust someone. Music itself is such a huge thing.
Right.
You don't go and first you do your job properly. Like if I mess up it is like saving my face first. Like if am I going to do good songs for this guy rather than telling them, oh, your story is like, they'll say like, do your song correctly, find your business. That's one of the reasons why actually I also didn't take some of my greatest friends as directors, because I wouldn't have the face. I'll be intimidated to suggest them anything.
Right.
Like even though it's my story, they would say that, I think this is right. Trust me.
Right.
So we didn't want any kind of showdowns on that. In case of Vishwesh, I think he's also very adamant. And so if I go with an idea, I have to prepare how to convince him. It might sometimes take 2 days, 3 days. And it's good that somebody's holding something together.
Right.
And when you change something, it has to go through the system, and it comes in the own way. So that is interesting. I think I love that thing about, because then it becomes khichdi. Like, when you see many movies being changed by other people, and then you see like it doesn't have a heart because it's all over the place, and it becomes nobody's child.
True. I mean, it should not be a surprise actually, given that India has been, I mean, not in a Western sense, but in its own unique way, has been making musicals, for ever since sound. And it should not be a surprise that a music composer is actively involved in the production of a film or even in the writing of a film. During your time as a music composer, have you come across filmmakers, Rahman, who you thought could be pretty good music composers themselves? People you worked with?
Um, yeah, there's a Rajiv Menon whom I worked. His mother is a singer, and he aspires to be a composer. And sometimes, some of the songs he's composed on, the Sarum Talamalayam, he's composed a song. And there is also, I keep forgetting. S.J. Surya is another actor, director,
Right.
who's got specific tastes, and he constantly tell you, can you do this tune, that tune? I said one day, I said, like, why don't you compose the movie? And he did it well. I think people love the songs, and this movie called Isai, he did it. And but in my case, I got a little frustrated that we are doing the same things again and again and again. The rules of songs in the context of films were not reinvented. It's just the same thing which been happening for 50 years.
Right.
And how can we change that? It's just a first attempt to put a platform for myself to explore and get like-minded people to see what else can we do with music, and where is the innovation in it. Why is the system so old and it's so convenient? Like, okay, you put a remix, you put a item song, and then get people in,
right?
And then see that movie, that song is driving. So it kind of I don't know, polluted the whole intention of as a composer. I mean, many things are driven by different things.
Right.
But for me as a musician, I wanted to go deeper into it. But going deeper means going away from commercialism. But how can you maintain the balance between what people will want to see? If it's given the right way, people are going to see it. People watch jazz and Whiplash because of the screenplay.
Right.
And that's not an art form which you go to the car and listen to. Not everybody's esoteric. But the character was so empowering that people gave respect to the art itself. And very similar to Shankarabharanam, which is another amazing musical which I have in the South from K. Vishwanath. Talks about a guy who's a Carnatic singer, and he brought Carnatic music to mainstream audiences by using S.P. Balasubramaniam and making the character so strong and so respectable that he kind of reinvented or he energized he redeemed the system of Carnatic music to mainstream audiences. So these are extraordinary feats by some of the filmmakers I adore. And so the aspiration is to see whether we can go further with Indian music through modern filmmaking, and not just use them as in the old conventional ways, but is there any other way? Can we bring science with it? Can we bring... These are the questions for the past 10 years we've been researching, and our company has been investing a lot of things. So this is the first step.
Right.
To see, and it's a very safe step, I think, like for us,
right.
To have a new voice. And of course, I'm going to tell everybody to come with very low expectations. So this is the first attempt, so they have to be kind.
Right. I mean, it's called YM Movies, if I'm not mistaken, Rahman. Why YM?
YM is the spiritual teacher kept that name because to bring barakah, they say. And it's a scary thing, producing movies.
Right.
And yeah.
But Rahman, I mean, speaking of innovation and innovation in sound, for instance, when you started out back in the 90s, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I read somewhere where you mentioned about how, say, a song like Rukmani Rukmani was the first one without the structure of Antara and Mukra, right? And you could play with it because you were starting out. Does it become harder and harder when you become more successful because all that money is riding on you? There's this name attached to you. There is these producers who are lined up, these filmmakers who expect something. Is it much easier when you're starting out than it is later in the career when you're more successful to play around with sound and its texture or even structure?
Yes and no. Actually, people know, they associate me with quirkiness
Already, right?
and something which they want like in the beginning, and they will. So that's become like a standard. They come out and they rip you apart, and then it's like after 1 week, oh, actually, it's actually nice listening to it. So
Right.
I've got so jaded with that whole thing, and when it comes, they'll rip you apart. Like, ah, it's not good. It's finished. It's gone. And I said, okay, I'm gone. Then slowly they see the intention behind it, and then they recognize it. Most of the stuff. Um, yeah,
Right. That's the one thing that is true, and that has been true for your entire career, Rahman. There is something about your music that you cannot either laud or discard the first time you hear it. It takes some time for it to seep in. I know you mentioned once that Rena Tu was that kind of a song used in Delhi 6, where little later people gravitated towards the number. Actually, that's true for all your music. It's not made for just the first listen. You need to hear it again and again, and then it becomes part of you when you start loving it. Is that something that you've had to face all through because you're innovating each time?
yeah. I think anything which is out of the box requires time.
Right.
The intention comes later. They realize, because everybody, we have limited knowledge. Even me, when I used to listen to Michael Jackson, it's boring.
Hmm.
The same beats and same singing the stuff. And like after 3 days, like, oh wow, this song was nice. And you realize the intention, and you realize the other layers in the song. And in my case, I think there's certain songs which I want them to be instantly likable,
Hmm.
and certain songs which I take liberty, because I don't work just in 1 day, 2 days. It's a process. Sometimes I come back to the song a month later,
Hmm.
and I pull something off which is expected, and put something which is unexpected. And because I'm the listener, first listener,
Right.
and if I don't satisfy this first listener, nobody's going to be satisfied. That is the formula which I take.
Right.
Whether from my first movie or this movie, I'm the first spectator. I'm the first, audience.
Right.
So if I feel bored, they're going to feel bored. And I
Have,
watched this movie over 70, 80, 100 times, and then constantly nudging, take that off, take that off. I want to go faster. I want to add a rhythm here. I want to make this exciting. I'll change it. So it's beautiful. It's very therapeutic, actually.
but are there tracks, Rahman, that you felt, uh, you know, perhaps they're closer to you because they did not become as successful because maybe people did not get the intent right, or maybe they didn't hear it enough number of times.
Yeah, some like even Swades when it released, or Jodha Akbar when they released, you saw the review, it just tore it apart. They're like, it's not good. And then now some of the tracks have become cult tracks. So it is just that when we try to judge anything, like even when you listen to a song, I want myself to just listen to the song, not judge it.
Hmm.
What progression is happening, what voice is happening. Listen to it as an art form rather than what is the intention, what is the budget, why is he used this one.
Right.
Rather than dissecting it, just see it as a wholesome thing and what emotionally it does to you. And sometimes it works, sometimes it takes time. Yeah,
Right. I
it's
think
fine.
there's a beautiful line of yours, Rahman, where you said a beautiful piece of music on its own can signify many things because imagination doesn't have budgets. Movies
Yeah,
do, you know.
true.
That's so beautifully put. But because it appears in the movies, do you think there have been, and because you're now a filmmaker in your own right, do you think there have been some soundtracks of yours or some tracks of yours that were in movies that people did not get to watch and therefore they couldn't sample it as many times for those songs to seep into our public imagination?
Yeah, the Domini, the past 10 years, I think I've been doing movies which are more on soundtrack based, not like
Hmm.
lip sync. And there's a song at the end of the Viceroy's House.
Hmm.
There is an album I did with Kapil Sibal. Then there is a song where it was the Sachin soundtrack because it's a documentary movie.
Mhm.
And these are not promoted, like they are just like backgrounds. But the core audience of mine, they always go deep and they exchange all the stuff. But I also don't care. I think I've been getting a great fair share of my, great stuff from love from people. Not everything has to be successful, like little things. If the core is reaching, it's fine. The other nuances can reach later. And yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you get that wherever, maybe if you're in the airport or somewhere traveling, when a fan would just come up to you and say, I really like that song. And that's not the most popular song. Like, for instance, everyone I know, and none of them are Tamil speakers, and many of them not from India, they love Boom Boom from Boys. And it's a song that they always play.
Really?
Yeah, and it's really survived because it's so peppy. But it's a movie that most people haven't seen, which is probably why the song is not that big, right?
Yeah, it was not released in Hindi. It was released
Right.
in, I think, Tamil and Telugu. Yeah.
Right, right. So do you get that quite often?
Yeah, I think I was walking near the Kodak Theatre once. Very rarely I go to that place. And I'm walking, then no one, I think there was a guy with an Afghani person, I think, NRI or Afghani
Right.
person. He suddenly said, "You know what? That song of yours, sir." And I was expecting some Hindi movie. And he said, from a movie I did for Dhanush, in a movie called Bharat Bala directed called
Mm,
Mariam.
mm.
And this was not even a full song. It was just a bit song in one of the sequences. And he talked about that. And he said, he sang that and showed me like, wow. See the how. So I tell my engineers that, everything we do travels and people are
Right,
seeing, people are hearing. So it's not that this is famous and this is not famous. Every little bit has to be in perfection. It has to be mixed beautifully. It has to be faded beautifully. It has to be. So we respect everything which goes out from the studio.
right. And also with regard to films, Rahman, I mean, you've had like a non-stop career for God knows like almost 3 decades now. Uh, do you make sure that the ups and downs of the career don't affect, because you have to be creating all the time. You don't have that luxury. Say filmmakers have the luxury of, okay, this movie's out now and I can now think of the next one. You have to think of the next song like tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
do you do
exactly.
you, do you
Yeah.
manage to insulate yourself?
So the actors or directors, they finish the movie and then they go, they take holiday with
Yeah.
the family and they do the promotions and then they go. That's it. But here we finish one movie and boom, next 10 files come in. This person has to go for shooting and this heroine is getting married and that hero is actually traveling abroad. So I had to finish a song. So you get into this pressure, but it's nice. I've been used to that stuff. And in between we get some time and yeah.
Right. The reason also I'm asking this question because there's some newspaper clipping I have in front of me, which is actually an ad, and it's an ad for Indian Pro Music League. So it says on the show, that's Rahman revealed that he was even thinking of quitting the music industry until one film changed his life and turned things around for him. Tune in tonight to find out. I didn't tune in to find out, but I'm curious to know what is it? What was it that changed your life?
That's
What
my
was
my
it?
first movie when I was in the industry from 82 to 92 as a keyboard player, and then
Right.
my first movie released 92, and so I was like, I'd seen 40 years. That's 10 years was packed with 40 years of experience
Hmm.
because I've every day two call sheets, 7 to 1 to 9, 7 to 1 to 9, and because my whole childhood went in that.
Hmm.
Not that I'm repenting for it. That was the training ground, like the university for me,
Right.
playing for many other people. So one doesn't want to come back to movies again.
Hmm.
Like you want to do something else after that as a young mind.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, I'll do Roja because Maniratnam.
Hmm.
And if it works out, fine. Whether it works out or not, that's it. That's the last movie. And you give the best to that and get out. But that didn't happen. Then national award, love of people, then crossing over to Telugu, crossing over to Hindi, all that happened. And then I said, okay, another 5 years, 2 years, then another 6 years, another one more year. Then 2001, Andrew Lloyd Webber was like, now shut up and just keep doing music because that's what you have to do. But this, I think, it was a very bold step. It's very hard for someone in 20 years to do this because I kind of decided never to produce because I've seen music composers, singers miserably gamble and come to the roads selling everything.
Right.
So I felt like I should not do that. But here, I feel like some that courage came to me. I don't know where from where, saying that if you're afraid of everything, that you can't do anything, and for the sake of music and art, and for the sake of your own progress, you have to take that step and start this company where we can redefine, we can find our own voice in filmmaking with the vision of music in it, the vision to enrich people with music and experience.
Rahman, if I'm not mistaken, you also made a VR film, which of course we never got to see. Tell us a little bit about that. Exactly what was that, and is there a chance? I mean, of course, VR will pick up at some point in any case, but is there a chance to catch it here in India?
So this once actually it's just like a talk between me and my wife. I said, because she loves perfumes and her table is filled with like 300 bottles of different smells. I was looking at it like, why don't you write? And she used to watch all these crime stories.
Hmm.
And I said, why don't we, because you love this and you love perfumes, why don't we combine both? And we'll build a small theater, experimental theater, where we have projections all over, and we'll do a movie with smell, like a theater with smell. And so this story about this girl whose parents get murdered and she has to find the killers through the smell. That one line came in.
Right.
So I never forgot about it. I spoke to my friends in LA who, who design all the Etihad, seats and all the stuff. And one of my friends from Odyssey, Shankar, he said, he introduced me to people. And then suddenly he said, yeah, I think you don't have to invest all that. There's something called VR. And I put that and I was blown away. Like I could see things in a way which I never seen in cinema. I said, this is it. And then I spoke to Danny Boyle's daughter, who heads a company called Feelies.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yeah, I do VR, sent thing. We do documentaries. And I said, why don't we put this story into this? And so because it's a new medium, I felt like you don't have to be in an Indian language. It could be in an English language, because it's about the experience. When people watch Avengers here, people watch James Bond here,
Right.
people watch all that stuff, and they don't think about language or culture here. And this is beyond culture. This is a cinematic, the next level of experience, and that happened. I wrote the story with Guraji Phoenix. He wrote the screenplay, and we did some testing. We did a previous again. We shot the previous, and the previous came to 40 minutes. And then I got this French actress called Nora Arnazadar to star in it. And we went to Rome and shot it. We had one of the best cameras at that time with a global shutter, 60 frames, and stereoscopic vision, ambisonic sound, blah, blah, blah. Just to see, again, put a path which it doesn't make commercially viable things, but out of jumping and gambling. And so I finished the movie, shot it, and then realized that the post-production is going to take a long time to get the perfect stitch, to get the CG, to get the vision. So it's just about finished, and we are very proud of it. We had a 6-minute capsule of that in Cannes XR a couple of years back. And we had I think we have very kind remarks. We have reaction video on the net. Now this is like an installation where you come in, you have interactive things, talking to each other, and you come to the pod, which is 360 moving robotic seat, which has the Zen capsule, which has ambisonic sound, and it has the HMD. So you're witnessing future, like experience of cinema.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Rahman, I'm not going to take more of your time, but I'm going to be that fanboy and take your time in advance for a conversation that we need to have on 99 greatest songs of yours and the stories behind them. But right now, we're of course awaiting 99 songs, which is the film. All the best for the movie, Rahman. Wish you all the best for the VR film as well, and to a great successful career as a filmmaker too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Enjoyed
Rahman.
talking.